This is Real Oregon Lifestyle with Andrea Fay and Jenn Fiddler, two licensed real estate brokers who share their love of all things Oregon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Fay.
And I'm Jenn Fiddler.
And welcome to Real Oregon Lifestyle. Today we have special guest with us, Keith Kolkow, who happens to be running for city council in Albany and also happens to be an avid gardener. Before we start chatting with Keith, we're going to go ahead and check in with the real estate market real quick. We keep getting the same questions over and over and over again. And so we thought we'd address some of those. I work in the Corvallis, Albany, Philomath area as a realtor, and Jenn works up in the Portland area. And the number one question that people are asking is my house value going to drop soon? What say you, Jenn?
We've got a supply and demand issue right now. There's more buyers who are wanting to buy homes than there are people selling them. And builders aren't building enough homes for the amount of people relocating to the area. So quite simply, I just don't see that prices are going to go down because interest rates are so good and there are buyers for homes. Their buying power is more. Sellers, they, have a larger buying pool than they've ever had. So it's just a combination of a lot of factors where, people, if they don't have to sell their house right now, why would they? So it's just created even lower inventory than we started with. So simple supply and demand economics, and I don't see an end in sight anytime soon.
Me neither, especially down here in the Willamette Valley. I was looking at the statistics, and as far as the inventory is concerned, our inventory is extremely low, but I'm noticing that as listings are coming up, they're immediately going under contract, and actually the listings that are going under contract are outpacing the number of listings that are coming onto the market. So we're just getting less and less inventory. And it makes it a little bit harder as a buyer. And luckily for everyone out there, Jenn and I are fantastic with buyers. We know how to navigate this market. And of course, there's going to be a different strategy for every person.
And full disclosure, I actually bought my house, I shouldn't say from Andrea, but with Andrea. And I can attest to that, like little producer's note, these guys are amazing. I mean, you really went to bat for us, Andrea. I'm one of your biggest fans now.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Nice to have a fan here. That also happens to be our producer. Would you agree with that, Jenn, though? It's, inventory is just getting lower and lower because of the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you guys, it seems like a lot of people I know are trying to move a little bit more out into the country to do their own thing. Is that a trend that you've been noticing as well?
Yes. We've been noticing that a lot. And then also, there's been a lot of people that are trying to move from big cities into smaller cities. So Corvallis, Albany, those are actually becoming little hot spots now.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the case up here. We're seeing people moving out of Multnomah County into Clackamas and other areas in the surrounding area, but also up and down I-5 in the state. So I think that as people's lives change and we know how all of this is going to pan out, whether that's working from home more and needing office space or just wanting sort of that lifestyle home. I've heard that a lot lately. I need something where I can have a huge yard, where I can grow my own garden. All of those kind of things are positive and, spawning people to think about moving right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's all about trying to make your home something that you want to live in, especially during the pandemic. And there is that fear out there that we're going to be stuck in a lockdown again. And so people, they want to be comfortable where they're living. And who can blame them? I want to be.
And Keith, I'm noticing that you're really connecting with what we're talking about right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. While we were in lockdown, Lowe's was just like jumping in Albany. And we were going there and it felt like everyone had time to finish up projects with the end goal of listing and getting things wrapped up in their current homes that they hadn't had time to do.
I will totally agree with that. You know, the market is just a little bit wild right now. And I do think that there are people that do want to make a change, and they're contemplating it right now. They want to know, what is my house worth? How am I going to get from A to B? And we highly suggest having a good strategy when doing that. So if you are in that boat and you're questioning things and maybe you just want to know what your house would sell for on today's market, give Jen and I a call. We can give you some great advice on how to make that happen. With that being said, let's move on to the fun stuff. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and introduce Keith, our special guest.
Okay. So this is a little awkward because I've known Keith for years personally, very good friend of mine. And so I was sitting there today thinking about how to introduce you, and I felt so weird. I'm like, this is just Keith, my friend. But no, Keith is actually been an Oregon native his whole life. He just recently moved back to Albany in 2013. I guess that's not super recent, but immediately got involved with the Albany community, and since then has been involved with all kinds of different organizations, from Rotary to the Altrusa, and recently, as 2017, started the Albany Pride celebration. So super involved with the community and has a love for Albany. And with that, decided to run for City Council Ward 1. So take it away, Keith.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, I've been very heavily involved in the community. The more I got involved, the more I realized we needed some stronger leadership on our local council, and we needed more representation for younger families and working towards making Albany specifically more family friendly. We're already a very business friendly community, and now we just need to be there for all of the growing families we have now.
And we do have a lot of those growing families. And I think it's awesome. Of course, I've also known Keith for a number of years too, and I think it's really cool. Keith is one of those people that he cares very deeply about what he does, and when he goes for something, he goes all in. So that's awesome. I'm really excited for your run for city council.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to go all in or not at all, right?
That's right. That's right. So we also it sounds like we also have something in common with Keith, and that is Keith is an excellent gardener. And Andy, I don't know if you have the photos, but if you could put some photos up of Keith's garden, that would be awesome.
You better believe I do. Look at this, you guys.
Gorgeous. Very gorgeous.
Oh, man. What are these, Keith?
Which ones? The orange ones?
Mm-hmm.
So those are a species of echinacea.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Nice.
As in edible?
No,
No,
these are,
okay.
It's like a cone flower. Echinacea is like a cone flower. So they come in all kinds of different colors. Most people are more familiar with like the purple variety. And these are some awesome orange that I got at a local nursery.
I love that.
The purple variety is edible though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Some topiaries. I'm a big fan of topiaries because they're super hard to keep alive. So the one on the left, the myrtle, they have to stay in the house in the wintertime, and then they come out in the porch in the spring, summer, and they are just so finicky. They have to have the right area to be. You have to water them habitually, trim them. So they require extra care and love, and it's fun trying to keep those alive.
I assume you're shaping these. They're not just growing that way themselves.
Yep. Those are all shaped. So the other one, that's a lemon cypress. And those are more Mediterranean, so they don't require as much water, but that is one that I shaped. I actually got that at Garland's, and it was just kind of like one, like an obelisk shape, and it was dying and just kind of like laying on the ground.
Oh.
And so I picked it up and was like, I'm going to fix you.
Oh my gosh, it's a rescue plant.
It is a
Yes,
rescue
I do have a
plant.
lot of rescue plants from Lowe's and local nurseries that I see looking sad, mistreated, so I take them in and try to fix them up.
Unfortunately, they do have those. They do happen.
Yep.
My wife does that, but usually with vegetables. She's like, no, you're still going to produce.
Right.
Don't worry, I'll bring you home.
And
Yes.
chickens too.
I don't know if you noticed the smell in the bathroom, but we rescued 2 ducks last night. So
Is that what that is?
Awesome.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I did notice.
Sorry about that.
That's hilarious. Okay, so
Awesome.
but I have actually, in talking with several people this week, I have noticed a trend here in the Willamette Valley. We have this clay-like soil, and it can be really tough to plant anything and get it to grow. I'm sure you have the same soil in your yard,
Oh yeah.
but I'm sure you've done things to make it
Mhm.
much better. What can someone do to make that clay soil easier to plant things?
So one of the things a lot of people, I think, make a mistake when they're planting in this clay soil is they just dig a hole big enough for whatever they're planting in the ground, just specifically big enough for that root ball. And what you really need to do is make that hole bigger, and you need to add some soil around it so that it has the room for those roots to grow out into the soil and get more established before they penetrate into the clay and continue to grow bigger. So definitely amend the soil while you're at it when you're planting those.
Okay. And is there a specific kind of soil that is good for that?
It really depends on what you're planting. If you're planting flowers, I use like a regular kind of Miracle Grow. That always works well. And then if you're doing vegetable, you want to look for a vegetable specific soil.
Okay. That's good. I have quite the vegetable garden. But most of my vegetables are grown in raised beds. But I do have some because I call them my Hail Mary plants that I threw in the ground. I grew some squash, and some of my squash plants are doing really well. And then some of them are just like hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's because our soil has a high amount of clay in it.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to work with, and you really want to get in there, especially in any flower bed that you're going to be working on or on a vegetable garden bed. You want to get in there and turn the soil over and add some other nutrients, add some other lighter soil into that and some mulch to break it up, because it's going to be hard for the plants to get established in that thick soil.
That's very true. Andy, did we have some other listener questions? I know that we've had some.
Oh yeah, we've got listener questions. As a matter of fact, I think I have my first one.
right.
I would like to know if you have any plants, edible wise, that you like to grow or have growing around your place. I don't know if you noticed when you pulled up here, but almost everything that we have planted is edible.
Yeah, I saw your huge garden back there, and I was like, "That's awesome." Jealous.
Yeah, even the roses up front that we're using as a hedge, those are the type that produce the giant rose hips.
Okay, awesome. So I don't really have anything growing right now. I didn't do a vegetable garden this year. This year I was focused more on, I pre-ordered a ton of different bulbs and corms so that I could do some spring plantings and some other plantings throughout the year. So it was focused mainly on flowers this year. So I got a lot of starts going in my little greenhouse.
You have a greenhouse?
It's not a huge greenhouse, but
I'm jealous. I want a greenhouse.
Yeah.
That's ballin'. All right, we do have a couple other questions, you guys.
Right.
So, any suggestions for getting plants to grow in the dense clay soil? I think you already talked about that a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah. What are the best easy care plants for high impact? I assume this is something a little bit more real estate related, right, Andrea?
I think so. At least in talking with some of my clients, that's one of the big questions is, we have a lot of water in the valley. And but then in the summertime, we also need some plants that might be able to be a little bit drought resistant, because it does get dry. If you're listening and you're not actually living in Oregon right now, we do have the most beautiful summers here ever. And they're most of the time they're pretty mild, but we do have a couple weeks when we have some pretty high temperatures. In fact, this weekend we're going to have 100-degree weather on Saturday. So, which, if you're in Nevada, you're probably just laughing right now. But we do have that. And so we need some plants that maybe could survive some of that heat.
Yeah. Yeah. You want something that's going to survive and have high impact, high visibility. You don't want to have any like puny stuff, and you probably don't want anything that's going to get crazy invasive and just take over everything. Awesome. So if you go back to some of the pictures, I have some examples there from my own garden. So those right there, the really flowery ones with the flower balls, those are different kinds of hydrangea. Hydrangea are great for this area, and they're very high impact, low maintenance, and they just they go crazy once you get them in the ground.
Now, as far as a hydrangea goes, does that need like partial sun or full sun, or how does that work?
So they typically do best in morning sun, and then you want to keep them out of like super high heat sun in the afternoon, or they will wilt, and then you'll be doing a lot of watering on those. But those are good low maintenance. If you can get them in a morning sun situation, they'll take off, they'll produce all summer long, and there's so many different varieties and colors that you can pick from.
You know, that's interesting because we actually had a hydrangea that was misplaced. When we first purchased our house, there were many plants that were in very odd places, and it was very obvious that the worst places. Yeah, the seller didn't know how to plant some of these and where to plant them, and so we had a hydrangea that was just dying, and it was in this spot that it was getting way too much sun and way too much afternoon sun, and so we actually flipped it into a different part of the yard. Now this year, it's actually been, since we transplanted it, it's been like 2 years. This thing is going crazy. And we have so many beautiful blooms on it. I actually pick them off and put them in a vase and bring them inside sometimes, and they're just gorgeous.
Yep. Yeah, hydrangea are great for that. And the fun thing about clipping them off and putting them in vases is you're not hurting it, because in the wintertime, you just want to like trim those down to the ground anyway. So you're not harming the bush's growth at all.
And what about this echinacea? Is this something that is relatively easy to grow?
Super easy. And that one loves full sun, and it loves, you don't have to overwater. You can kind of just let it do its thing, and it will come back every year. So it just keeps on coming back. Some species of that will self-seed and just keep on producing.
That's awesome. Echinacea is something that you can put in tea. I don't know very much about drying it. Yes, that's right. Don't get the one that's not edible and then put it in tea.
Yeah.
And
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't have much to contribute to this conversation, because I am not much of a gardener, as you both well know. In terms of stuff like, when do I want to start planting? Let's say I want flowers by, I don't know, June, July, something like that. When do I really need to have my bulbs in the ground? I've always kind of struggled with that.
So depending on when you want those to come up, a lot of bulbs come up in springtime, and most of them you'll plant in the fall, or you can do super early spring. As soon as like the first frost is gone, then you can get those in the ground. But a lot of your other bulbs for like daffodils and tulips, those, you want to get those in the ground in the fall.
Okay.
I love
what
tulips.
would you recommend for me, knowing that you know that I kill everything and my yard doesn't look that great right now?
I would love to.
Huh?
I said I'd love to help you with your yard. We've talked.
Yeah, come on up. You can come help anytime. I need low maintenance stuff, and the back of our house is super hot. You've been there. I mean, even on a 50-degree day, it feels like 75 back there because it's just the hot part of the house. But what I want to do is that strip along the back of the house and just do a bunch of stuff. Would you recommend something like hydrangeas?
No, hydrangeas are going to be way too hot in your backyard.
Okay.
They're going to look sad most of the time. What you can do back there, which I think would be really cool, is you can do some super bright perennials that just keep on coming back, and that will love full sun. A lot of them all love full sun. And I think it'd be really cool if you did like a whole bunch of sunflowers back there. I think you'd love that. And those are super low maintenance, and they don't require a whole lot of watering.
Ooh.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what about lavender?
Oh yeah, I've like tons of different lavender, and those are great, low maintenance, not a lot of water, let them go. I also really like doing different varieties of rosemary. There's so many different kinds. Some of it flowers, some of it doesn't. And you can even do rosemary hedges, which I've done in my yard.
Rosemary is also edible.
Yep.
You guys, sage blossoms.
Yes.
I can't believe how floral and well scented they were, by the way. And I'm pretty sure I ran off some ghosts too. So it was like, a triple threat in my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of these herbs, they have really, really great flowers.
They really do. Yeah. No, sages, that's one that I always forget about, but it is gorgeous too. It does. And it smells, and it's a plant that attracts a lot of bees too.
Definitely. Will definitely help your garden. If you're doing vegetables, get some lavender around there.
Heck yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
We got another question. It's what suggestions you might have for ants and slugs. You have thoughts about that?
Yes. So ants, they're after your sweet stuff, usually the little ones that we have here in the valley. Super annoying. Plant stuff that has kind of sweet nectar going on away from your house. So I do that with peony. I plant peony on my fence line, and then they all head that way, and they're not trying to come into my house. It also helps if you have trees that are close to your home. The ants are going to climb the tree, get on your roof, get into your house. So keep the trees and bushes away from your home, and that will kind of bring that down. And then slugs, because it gets so moist out here, especially if you have a shade garden, they're going to go in there and chew up all your stuff, and it's a wreck. One of the easiest things that I use to deter them is hazelnut shells. So here in the valley, you can get bags of hazelnut shells, put those around the plants that you're trying to protect, and the snails they don't want to go across those.
That has a double use too. If you have cats that like to roam, like your neighbor's cats like to roam into your garden, they hate hazelnut shells also.
They're just not comfy.
Nobody likes them. The slugs don't like them. The cats don't like them.
Yeah.
They're not comfy.
Gosh. Yeah. We need hazelnut shells around our kale then. They've been getting eaten up by the slugs.
Yeah. And especially for around your vegetables and stuff, plant some marigolds. Do the marigold border around your vegetable garden. They'll go right to the marigold. They won't make it past it. They'll just eat it all up.
Wow.
I did not do that this year. We did have some slugs this year in my vegetable garden. So I'll be doing that next year for sure.
They're nasty.
Yeah, they are nasty. And they are hungry. Those little bastards.
Man, Keith, you are dropping the knowledge today. All right.
You totally are.
We got one more for you. What are your favorite practices for a nice lawn, good grass care?
Okay. So definitely soil amendment. A lot of our yards out here get a ton. It's that high impacted clay, and then your grass starts looking kind of sad. What I like to do, especially in the fall, is get a few bags of topsoil, and you can get those from the home goods store, or you can have them brought in from a nursery, and you want to put that on top, rake it out, a couple inches of that all over your grassy area. And then what I call overseed, or is known as overseeding. Then you just put a ton of grass seed in that over the winter, and then in the springtime, it's going to just come back and be super lush.
Those are great tips. We have, again, we are rescuing our lawn right now. When we bought this house, the whole yard was kind of a disaster. In fact, there was just junk and stuff everywhere. It's amazing what sellers do in this market, by the way. They just leave stuff and they don't want it anymore. They just, use the yard to throw it away and then hope the buyers take care of it. That's not for every house, but it does happen sometimes. But meanwhile, the people that own the house before us had dogs, and they ran like a couple lines around the house. And so we have some tracks that we're trying to fill in. And again, it's when they planted their lawn, I'm almost positive they didn't put any kind of topsoil in there, because it just feels like that heavy clay.
Yep.
So
you definitely want to get topsoil on here this fall.
Okay. Well, that's great news, because we've been trying to figure out what to do. And we have some patchiness in certain areas that we already had crane fly too.
Oh, yuck.
So we finally got rid of the crane fly. That was the first step one.
Right.
Step one, get rid of the crane fly. And then after that, and we've just, we've done a lot of weed and feed too. So that's helped. The grass is coming back. But holy cow, this has been a really tough grass to grow.
I used to love weed and feed because my dad would use it every year and the whole lawn would die. And I was just like, Dad, come on.
It would die?
Right. Not a little lawn here.
It was all
weeds.
It was all weeds. And by the way, if anybody's going to be replanting their yards, definitely be using things from the Lynn County
Mhm.
We're the grass seed capital of the world,
Right.
people.
Amen.
There's a grass seed that they invented in this area not too long ago that's like super doesn't need a whole lot of water and always looks green.
Oh my gosh, I know the name of it. I can't believe I know the name of it.
What is it?
It's the tall fescue.
Yes, that I've been wanting to do that in my backyard and I have not got around to it because I hate watering too much grass because I'm like, this is waste. But yeah, I definitely want to get some of that seed.
I'm sorry, Jen. I know you have a ton of thoughts about lawns, but I just have to quickly interject. I have a buddy that works for Proseed, and they have like test lawns that they do, right? They have this mix, and it's actually a turf. Places grow it, and then they'll
Scoop it
sod
up.
They'll
yeah,
sod
sod.
it. Yeah.
It's a mix of short and tall fescue, because if you do too much tall fescue, it can feel a little prickly on the feet, apparently. So it's a mix of tall and short fescue. He said if you just put topsoil down on your existing lawn to fill in the gaps and then roll this over the top, it's so hardy it will just choke out the weeds and the grass underneath of it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that's healthy grass when you don't even get any weeds coming in. That's awesome.
That's amazing. Well, where we are in Philomath, it's like the weed central because about 3:00 every single day we get a west wind that comes up and it's like this coastal air. But with it, it brings weeds and God knows what, and straight into our yard. I'm pretty sure like it's just our yard.
Yeah.
But we're weeding constantly, and we actually finally this year have the weeds under control. But
Yep.
holy cow, it's been really tough. And so anytime we can find something that will help with weed control, we're totally on board.
Yep. And the healthier your grass is, the less weeds you'll have
Mhm.
because it will just be lush. The weeds won't even have a way to really get in there.
Well, I need to have you come and look at our yard too and give me some landscaping ideas because
Totally.
I can imagine really cool stuff like what colors your paint, your house need to be painted. And I can imagine what to do for decorating. But for whatever reason, I do not have the ability to imagine what plants need to go where. And it's very clear that the owners that previously owned our house did not know the same thing. So I need help.
Jen, I can see your wheels turning. You're already thinking about what you're going to put back there, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to do the sunflower thing because I like the idea of low maintenance. And then Grayson and I have already been talking about ripping out the front yard. And same thing. I think they put grass seed right over the top of basically construction grade dirt 20 years ago. And so we were thinking we're going to rip the whole thing out. But knowing about this tall and short fescue, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to bring in topsoil and put that over the top. And I'm imagining I want to do that like in end of September. Is that a good time?
That'll be great.
Okay.
So, if someone was also to plant some ideas I've had in my own yard, I love daisies. Daisies are such a cute flower. And I also love lavender, and I love them together. Like they just look fluffy and inviting, and the bees like them. And I also really I want to help the bees out. When would be a good time to plant both of those?
So that'll be spring.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Definitely.
Fair enough.
And then be careful what kind of daisies you get, because if you get the smaller English daisy, they kind of spread everywhere, and you got to stay on top of it. They're pretty easy to thin out, but they'll get kind of crazy.
I actually like the bigger ones anyway.
Good.
I did get some daisies, but long story short, our fence is being replanted. I'm pretty sure they got trampled on, and I don't think they're going to make it.
Yeah.
So we'll start again next year. Do we have any more listener questions, or are we out of listener questions? Okay. Well, I think
that's all for today.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have a question for you, Keith. Before we go and we kind of wrap back around to your city council thing, give us your 2-minute elevator speech about why you love Albany.
So I love Albany because I grew up in a smaller community till I was 12 with like 600 people. So coming to Albany feels more like homey for me. It's not super big. Everyone's pretty friendly. It's pretty easy to get involved in the community. And there are so many different people that care about Albany and specific organizations in Albany. So that's why I love it. It's just a fun place to live. We have a ton of different programming, especially in the summertime. We have movies in Monteith. We have the River Rhythms concerts. We have the Art and Air Festival and wine walks, all kinds of fun stuff always happening in Albany. I'm always like completely perplexed when people are like, Albany's so boring, there's nothing to do. And I'm like, you just need to plug yourself in and you'll find out there's so many different things going on. And that's why I love it. Also, real estate wise, right on I-5. So a couple hours in any direction, you're at the coast, you're in the mountains, you're on your way to Southern Oregon, you're on your way to Portland, and like really a good hub of wine country too. You can head all kinds of different wineries in the immediate area.
Amen to that.
Right?
You know, I think you're right. Albany is a fantastic community, and anyone that moves there, I've never had any clients say, I hate Albany after moving here. Never had anyone say that.
That's awesome.
So it's a fantastic community. And I think it's just amazing that you're so community oriented, and you get to be one of those people that is going to work towards being more community oriented. Keith definitely has a passion for it. So support Keith. He's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. My website's just keithforalbany.org. Same on Facebook. Check it out. Read about some of my priorities there. Pretty community oriented, nothing too crazy. It's city council. So we're just worried about our community, showing care for our neighbors, and really setting an example for these younger generations about what it means to be active in your community and patriotic.
For people that may not know, this may be a dumb question, but what does a city councilor do?
So the majority of what a city councilor is up to has to do with a lot of the contracts for the city. They're looking at policies for growth, urban growth boundaries, those kind of things, buildings, whatever's coming up building wise. Some economic development is in there. Pretty kitchen table policy type stuff. Nothing too crazy.
Well, I think it's awesome because you're the perfect person for that. You have the ability to really put yourself in every other person's shoes and understand what goes into the decision making when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm really hoping we can get more people engaged and their eyes on what your local government does for you. There's really a lot of people have a hard time getting all the way through that ballot because it is a mystery of like, who are these people? Unless you're really engaged, you don't know who they are. But making sure you fill out your whole ballot, make it past the judges. That's where a lot of people drop off because, no one really keeps a huge eye on that. But once you get down to city council, really look into those people, find out what they're about, because that has the most impact on your immediate life.
Very true.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Keith, so much for joining us and all your valuable information when it came to gardening and city council. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank everyone for listening in and joining us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and realoregonlifestyle.com. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.